Montana, May 1883. The train puffed and groaned, stopping in the dusty town of Red Butte. Its big wheels squeaked on the tracks like a loud warning. Naomi Holly climbed off the last train car, wearing a light blue dress that looked nicer back. Home in Ohio, she held her bag tight with both hands, like it could keep her steady, but nothing could prepare her for what happened next. The guy she thought she'd marry, Albert McKinney, stood by the platform with 3 other guys in dirty shirts and boots. He looked her up and down, then laughed like she was a bad joke. "That her?" one of his friends asked. Albert nodded, still chuckling. "Man, she looks like she got lost heading to a picnic." His words hit her like sharp rocks. Naomi's throat got tight, and she gripped her bag harder. Everyone on the platform stared at her like she was a circus act. Her face got hot. "Albert," she said, her voice soft over the train's steam. "You came all this way for what? You think I was joking?" He waved his hand lazily. "I only wrote those letters for a bet. You really thought I'd marry someone I never met?" Everything went quiet. No one moved. Then Albert turned and walked away with his friends. Naomi stood still, her breath stuck. Those letters were sweet, full of promises about a new life, a home, a man who wanted a wife to share it with. She read them every night, kept them in her apron, dreamed of a fresh start. Now, all she felt was shame and a heavy heart. She looked down, blinking fast to hold back tears. A tall guy in a brown hat stepped off a wagon nearby. He'd been watching quietly from the shade. He wore an old coat and had a face that looked tough, like the land itself. He walked over slowly and stood by her without saying anything. He didn't look at her like she was a joke. He looked at her like she mattered. "You okay?" he asked. Naomi shook her head, eyes watery. "I don't know where to go now. I sold everything to come here." The man nodded, like he got how heavy that was. "I'm Thatcher Rowe," he said, voice calm. "I got a small place outside town. I raise cows, got a few horses. It's not much, but it's real. You can come with me if you want, just to rest. You don't have to decide anything today." She looked at him, unsure. "Why help a stranger?" He shrugged. "You're not the one who should feel bad. Sometimes people just need help. That's it." She looked past him to the road where Albert had disappeared. The hurt stung again. Her shoulders sagged. She nodded. Thatcher took her bag. "Come on, I'll get you some coffee and a place to sit." They walked quietly to his wagon. He held out his hand to help her up, and his grip was warm and sure. She sat next to him on the wooden seat as he drove the horses out of town, the train getting smaller behind them. His house was 5 miles west, nestled by hills. It was a small place with a slanted tin roof, smoke puffing from the chimney, and a barn that tilted a bit in the wind. The porch creaked when they stepped up. Inside, it smelled like coffee and wood. He set her bag by the door. "You can stay in the room across the hall. It was my sister's before she moved to Helena." Naomi looked around, unsure how to act. "You sure? I wouldn't offer if I wasn't." She nodded and went to the room, her legs shaky. Inside, she sat on the bed and let quiet tears fall, hot and heavy. Outside, Thatcher stopped by the door. He didn't say anything, just leaned against the wall, arms crossed, listening to her let go of her dream. That night she sat at his little kitchen table. He scooped stew into a bowl for her. They didn't talk about what happened, no nosy questions, just the sound of spoons and the fire crackling. After dinner, she helped dry dishes. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady when she asked, "Why are you being so nice to me?" Thatcher looked at her, eyes clear. "Because you deserve better than what you got." Days passed gently. Naomi fed the chickens, swept the porch, and fixed one of his shirts without him asking. Thatcher showed her how to hold horse reins and how to spot a storm coming by watching the sky. They didn't talk much, but the quiet felt safe, easy. One evening, sitting on the porch watching the sunset over the grass, Naomi looked at him. "You saw me cry," she said softly, not mad, just saying it. "Yeah," he said. "And you didn't walk away?" "No." She looked at her hands. In her lap, "I think I needed someone to stay." Thatcher looked at her, voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere." The wind blew her hair across her cheek. He reached over and tucked it behind her ear gently. She met his eyes. Something in her heart shifted. He stood and held out his hand. She took it, and he pulled her up. They stood close, closer than before. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said. She nodded, eyes stinging, "But for a new reason. I don't want to be." He stepped forward, slow and sure, and hugged. "Huh." She leaned into him, her forehead against his chest. Stars popped out in the sky, and everything felt calm. They didn't say the word love yet, but it was there. Waiting. The next morning, the sky was gray. Naomi followed Thatcher to the lower pasture. Dew stuck to her boots, and her skirt got heavy before they'd walked far. He led an old brown horse with a limp. "She's been off for 3 days," he said without looking back. "If it doesn't get better, she can't go on the drive." Naomi walked beside him, hands in her shawl. "Does she have a name?" "Hazel. She let you brush her yesterday. Fell asleep standing." Naomi smiled a little. "She likes gentle hands." By the time they reached the fence, the sun peeked through, spreading light on the grass dot. He tied Hazel to a post and checked her leg. Naomi watched his shoulders move in the morning light. "Do you miss her?" she asked. He looked up. "Who?" "Your sister. You said she moved to Helena." He stood, brushing his hands. "Sometimes. She's got a husband now, 2 boys. She's happy." Naomi leaned on the fence, wood cool against her back. "It's weird how life changes. 1 letter, 1 step. And everything's different." Thatcher nodded. "I was supposed to go to Kansas once. Had a job lined up near Wichita. Then my dad got sick. I stayed, never left." "What happened to him?" "Died in a tough winter. Frost killed half the herd. We buried him before spring." She didn't say anything for a bit. The wind moved through the grass, pressing her skirt against her legs. "I was engaged once," she said finally. "Before the letters, before Albert." Thatcher stayed still. "He worked at a mill, lost his hand in an accident. After that, he got mad a lot. I told my dad I'd rather leave than marry someone who broke things just to feel big." His eyes met hers, steady as ever. "You did the right thing." She looked away. "Doesn't always feel like it." They walked back slowly, Hazel's limp setting the pace. Thatcher didn't fill the quiet, and Naomi was thankful. The silence let her breathe. Inside, she washed her hands while he poured water into the kettle. The barn smell stuck to him, earthy and real. She noticed a small scar on his arm, a white line on his skin. "Fence wire?" she asked. "The arrow. Ring broke while I was moving feed. Caught me on the way down." She ran her thumb over a chip mug. "You always live this quiet? Don't know any other way." She smiled faintly. "I like it." He paused as the kettle hummed. "You could stay longer." Naomi turned. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not." Her hand shook a little as she took the cup. "I don't know what I am here." Thatcher set the kettle down. "You're someone who got lied to. That doesn't make you less. It just means you need time and someone to stand by you." She held the cup close, steam warming her face. "And you do that. Stand by me." "I already am." The fire crackled. Outside, a hawk flew high. Above the barn, Naomi took a slow breath. "What happened to your mom?" "Died giving birth to my sister. My dad never married again. Said some losses don't leave room for new people." She nodded, understanding without pushing. Later, rain tapped the roof as they sat at the table. She fixed a frayed hem. He smoothed the wooden stirrup he'd carved. "You ever think about leaving?" she asked. "Sometimes. Then I remember the land. It doesn't ask for more than I can give." Naomi looked up. "I'd like to learn that kind of calm." "You've got it in you." The silence settled, cozy now. The wind shifted, rain slowed. He reached across the table, not touching her hand, but close. "If you ever want more than quiet and kindness, Naomi, I'm here." She didn't answer, but her fingers moved closer, brushing his. They sat like that as the day faded, letting the closeness say what words couldn't yet dot by late June. The trees by the creek behind Thatcher's house were full and green, their leaves shining like coins in the wind. Naomi stood in the shallow water, skirts pinned up, scrubbing a shirt on a washboard against a rock. A bird squawked from the fence. She looked up, but kept working. Work kept her steady when her thoughts raced. The creek bent toward the pasture, where Thatcher was leading 3 Rhenish horses to the corral. He moved calmly, shoulders steady. She'd seen him tame a young horse yesterday, with just a rope and a soft voice. No whip. No yelling, just patience. After washing the last shirt and laying it on a warm log to dry, Naomi sat by the creek and dipped her feet in the cool water. It calmed her. Footsteps made her turn. Thatcher walked up with a horse's reins in hand. "Thought you might want to ride her," he said. Naomi blinked. "Ride? She's gentle. Hasn't bucked since spring. I was going to take her out, but I think you should." She stood, wiping her hands on her apron. "I've only sat on a wagon seat, never ridden alone." "You won't be alone." He waited while she put her boots on, then helped her into the saddle. The horse shifted, but stayed calm. Naomi held the saddle horn tight, nervous. "You trust her?" she asked. "I trust you," he said. They rode slowly, side by side, following the creek through a gap between hills. The horse's ears flicked at buzzing insects. Naomi sat straight, unsure whether to talk or focus on not falling. "Did you ever think you'd marry?" she asked. After a bit, Thatcher adjusted the reins. "When I was younger, maybe. But the land always felt bigger than that idea." She glanced at him. "And now?" He didn't answer right away. "Now the quiet feels different. Not empty, just waiting." They stopped by a ridge where the land opened into a big meadow. Naomi slid off the horse, boots sinking into the grass. She walked a few steps, letting the wind hit her face. The horizon was wide, the sky bigger than anything back east. Thatcher got off his horse and stood by her, hat in hand. "I didn't expect to find someone like you," she said quietly. He didn't ask what she meant, just let her words sit. "I thought I'd be married by now," she added. "Kids, a garden, a man who knew my name like it was special." Thatcher watched her, face calm. "I'm not looking for rescue," she said firmly. "But if I stay, if I build something here, it has to be with someone who sees me. Not just my shape or my work, but all of me." "I see you," he said. She turned. His eyes didn't move. "I think I did the moment I saw you," he added. Naomi stepped closer, slow and sure. "I'm not afraid of work. I'm afraid of hoping again. Then we'll build it together. Slow and careful," he said. "Nothing rushed, nothing taken for granted." The wind lifted her skirt. She reached for his hand. He took it, their fingers fitting together perfectly. They stood together as the light deepened. Not talking, not needing to. The land stretched wide, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a place to run from. It felt like a start. July came warm, and the hens started laying eggs again. Naomi collected them each morning after the rooster crowed, before the sun hit the ridge. She moved carefully through the coop, straw crunching under her boots, basket on her hip. Hens clucked around her feet but didn't fuss anymore. She'd learned the place, the way the wind shifted before a storm, the barn doors creak when it needed oil, how Thatcher's quiet filled a room without pushing. Most days, they worked together, and at night, they sat close enough that their shoulders touched under the stars. One afternoon, as Naomi finished digging in the garden near the house, she stood and saw Thatcher leaning on the fence, watching. "You're stubborn," he said. She wiped her forehead. "I don't like empty dirt. It feels like a waste." He nodded at the rows she'd marked. "What are you planting?" "Late beans, onions, maybe squash if the dirt's good." He stepped forward, his boot catching a buried stone. "You worked land before?" She brushed her hands. "My dad had a small garden. He didn't let me near the fields. Said it was too much for a girl, but I watched. Learned enough to know what's worth planting. You've got a good eye for it." She looked at him, face warm from sun and work, and grabbed a tin bucket by the spade. "I've been meaning to ask, how long's the roof leaked over the back room?" "Couple years." "And you just let it?" "Didn't need the room." "Well, you do now." She handed him the bucket. "Help me patch it tomorrow. I'll be up there with or without you." He didn't argue, just took the bucket and headed to the well. That night, after the dishes were dried, Naomi stood by the fireplace, flipping through an old book of poems from Thatcher's trunk. The pages were thin, the ink faded, but someone had folded the corners carefully. "You read?" she asked. "Sometimes. Those were my teachers. Gave them to me when I was 12. Said I should know there's more to a man than work." She traced a line on the page. "Did you believe her?" He leaned on the doorframe. "Not then. And now?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I'm learning." Next morning, they climbed to the roof at dawn, carrying shingles and a hammer. Naomi wore a big hat Thatcher gave her, tied with a ribbon. They worked together. She held the board. He nailed. Sweat dripped down her back, and dust stuck to her sleeves. The hammer slipped once, hitting her thumb. She hissed and pressed it. "Let me see," he said, kneeling beside her. "It's not bad." Still, he held her hand gently, checking the bruise. His thumb brushed her skin. "Next time, I'll hold the board," he said. "I like knowing I can do it." He didn't let go. No one's doubting that. They stayed still, just the sound of flies and rustling trees below. Naomi looked at their hands, hers dirty with pitch, his big and steady. "I never thought I'd want to stay anywhere again," she said. Thatcher's voice was soft. "Then stay here." She looked up. "Would you want that?" He didn't answer with words. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. Their lips met, soft and sure, like something they'd both been waiting for. No rush, just real. When they pulled apart, Naomi rested her forehead against his. "Don't make promises you won't keep," she said. "I won't," he said. "Not ever." They finished the roof before noon. The sun was high when they climbed down, and they didn't talk more about the kiss. They didn't need to. Later, as shadows stretched across the yard, Naomi sat on the porch, sewing. Thatcher joined her, brushing sawdust off his sleeves. "What? About a milk cow?" she asked, not looking up. He thought about it. "We'd need to fix the corner pen and dig a trough." She met his eyes. Then it settled. He nodded Dot, and just like that, their future started to grow one board, one stitch, one choice at a time. The first frost came early, silvering the grass under a fading moon. Naomi stood at the window in her shawl, watching the cattle's breath puff near the fence. Behind her, the fire was low, glowing orange across the floor. She heard Thatcher's boots scuff the hearth, the chair creak as he sat. She didn't turn yet. Some silences didn't need words. "We'll need to move the herd to the lower barn by the week's end," he said. She nodded, still looking out. "Does the roof there hold up in snow?" "2 winters so far, but I'll brace the north wall this week." Her eyes followed a hawk circling the ridge. "There's a man in town, Mr. Calhoun. Runs the lumber yard by the church. He asked if I'd help his wife with the school term. Just mornings." She turned. Thatcher was watching her. He didn't speak right away. "You're thinking of saying, 'Yes, I'd like to do something with what I know. I taught reading in Ohio before my dad passed.'" He leaned forward. "You wouldn't need to ride in every day. He said he'd lend me a horse twice a week. I wouldn't be gone long." She waited. Thatcher nodded. "If it's what you want, it's yours." She touched his shoulder, letting her hand rest. "It is, but I wanted to ask you first." He looked up, eyes steady. "We're a pair now. What you do matters to me." Naomi leaned down and kissed the corner of his mouth, soft and sure. "Then I'll write him this afternoon." By mid-October, the schoolhouse smelled of chalk and wood smoke. Naomi sat at a desk most mornings, helping Mrs. Calhoun with lessons, teaching spelling, or calming the little kids when they got wiggly. One Thursday, she read a chapter from Pilgrim's Progress. Her voice steady, and the kids listened without squirming. Dot at home. Thatcher started carving a cradle. When Naomi told him she was pregnant, he set down his coffee, looked her in the eye, and said, "You sure?" She nodded, hand shaking a little. 4 months along, best I can tell. Wanted to be sure before I told you. He stood and hugged her, his cheek against her hair. "We'll make room. We'll get everything ready." That winter, the snow came heavy but late. Naomi's belly grew, and Thatcher added a rail to the porch steps without her asking. He brought extra firewood and kept it close. Though she never needed to grab it. Dot at night, they read by lamplight, her head on his shoulder, his hand on her belly's curve. One evening, as sleet tapped the shutters, she looked up from her sewing. I never asked why you stayed that first day, she said. Thatcher looked up from his carving. You mean in town? She nodded. You could have walked away. Most would have. He set his knife down. You looked like you were holding yourself together by pure will. I know what that feels like. She was quiet for a moment, then took his hand and held it to her cheek. You've given me more than I ever dreamed. We gave this to each other. Their baby came in May, when the apple trees bloomed. The labor was long, and Naomi gripped the mattress until her knuckles turned white. Mrs. Calhoun stayed all night, her hands steady, while Thatcher held Naomi from behind. Keeping her strong dot at dawn, their daughter was born with a loud cry and dark hair. Naomi held her close, tears falling as Thatcher kissed her sweaty forehead. She's perfect, Naomi whispered. She's ours, Thatcher said. They named her Clara, after Naomi's mom and Thatcher's grandma, and wrapped her in a quilt made from Naomi's old apron and Thatcher's shirt. The garden grew well that year. Beans came in thick, onions lasted through winter. On Sundays, they walked to town, Clara in Naomi's arms, the three of them getting quiet smiles from folks who once pitied her. No one asked questions anymore. There was no need. That fall, Naomi hung dried herbs from the rafters and filled shelves with jars of preserves. Thatcher built a small crib to keep by the fireplace. In the evenings, they sat close, Clara asleep, the fire humming. Naomi stretched her legs across Thatcher's lap, and he rested his hand on her ankle like it was natural. One night, as frost touched the windows, Naomi looked at him. I wasn't supposed to come here. Thatcher looked over. No, I was. Meant to find you. That's the difference. He nodded. They kissed then, slow and full of the life they built. No fuss, no need to nami it, just the truth of two. People who'd reached across their broken pasts and made something whole. When Thatcher stood to poke the fire, Naomi watched him, her heart full, knowing the warmth in the room wasn't just from the flames. It was from the life they'd built. Careful and true. The days weren't perfect, but they were theirs. And in the years ahead, as Clara grew tall, steady, and curious like her dad, Naomi never forgot stepping off that train with just a bag and a broken promise. Because from that moment came everything that mattered. Warmth, work, and a love so steady it never needed proving.